Once more, welcome to this engagement. But just so that we are guided by the program for the day, I thought I could just put in few points that would guide us in terms of how we're going to conduct the session today. It will basically be interactive, but we also need some guide. If this was going to be an interview, I was going to say maybe we need a semi-structured interview guide so that at least we know what we meant to cover today. So these are the areas that we are meant to look into today, but feel free to bring others, or anything that you feel needs to be discussed today. Quantitative data collection instruments. When do we use quantitative methods? When shouldn't we use quantitative methods? Some measurements, those that, have done statistics will know ordinal, interval, and the ratios. And you'll also look at strategies for reducing measurement errors and the data collection instruments. But before I proceed with the slides, let me just allow you to engage us, because most of you have already done a collection of data. Some of you are at the stage where you are analyzing data, and some of you are already at the stage where you're writing reports, and some of you are at the stage where your proposals have been accepted, and therefore all you are doing now is to really put it into an execution mode and so forth. So I'm going to make an assumption that all of us are at the different stages of research, and therefore this discussion that we are having here, it's squarely it falls within some of the work that you have already done. So let me allow you to engage us. Today we are really just going to be, spending a lot of time on the quantitative data collection methods and designs and techniques. So because most of you are at the different stages of your proposals, some of you are already at the stage where your proposals have been accepted. Some are at the stage where you are doing a lot more of putting it together. Others have already collected data. Some are analyzing data, and there are those maybe who are writing reports and so forth. So I just want us to have an engagement on the quantitative data collection, the experiences thereof. I know that we can randomly select, but it's always better when we start by those that just want to share, because this is the platform specifically for that. Let me check. Believe, are you able to hear us?
I'm on the second draft of my proposal. I submitted the second draft.
How did the second draft or the first draft handle your quantitative data collection methods? Take us through.
Yeah, I kind of faced some challenges on the data collection, but it was something that I'm yet to work on with my supervisors. But I used quantitative data collection, and I'm going to use the questionnaire method. I'm going to use the questionnaire method of data collection.
You're going to use the questionnaire. Have you designed the questionnaire already?
I'm busy drafting the questionnaire. I'm still busy drafting the questionnaire.
Okay, you are busy drafting it. I want to hear that draft process.
The draft proposal.
No, I want, you see, you are at the stage where you are drafting the questionnaire. Okay. That's what you're saying. So yes, I want to know, I want you to take us through the actual design process of a questionnaire.
Yeah, firstly, you must understand probably your population that you have sampled, the population. Then design questions that are in line with the population that we have sampled, or the population that your population, the sample that you have taken. I'm assuming to probably the teaching that you gave us to say probably if you've got data that is up to 5,000 or up to, I have decided to select a sample of about 300 small businesses, because I'm doing small businesses. So my questions will be based on the topic that I'm doing. Some of the questions, because I'm doing the risk management strategies. So the questions that I would draft, I'm busy drafting there, should be in line with what I want to achieve, the goal that I want to achieve. Whether small businesses, risk management strategies are helping small businesses for them to survive and to grow in the current climate that we have in South Africa.
Okay. Now I'm actually trying to push you, believe, to a point where you are now sitting in your workshop or in your workroom and you are designing a questionnaire. All that we know now is that you want to, because that question is going to go to the 300 people.
Exactly.
And your focus is on the risk management strategy. But I want you to design the questionnaire now, the process.
Or the process.
Yeah. Are you able to share that? Look, I'm not looking for the right or the wrong answer. I'm looking at your understanding of the process.
Exactly. Yeah, I think the process would be probably, firstly, you have to think of your target population that you are going to send the questionnaire. Secondly, then come up with the questions that will answer your objectives. Then the other point would be after drafting all the questions that are supposed to answer the objectives, then you would probably then seek for approval, probably from the supervisor. Then from there's also issue of ethics clearance. Remember, you are not supposed to send before you have your ethics clearance. You are supposed to probably involve the population when you have the ethics clearance. And then probably you have, after getting approval for ethics, then you now, and the questionnaire must be approved as well. If the supervisor is happy about your questionnaire, then you then go on to a process whereby you are sending to the people, respondents, the people who are supposed to respond to the questionnaire.
Okay, so all that is still the process, but is not talking to the question. You see, a questionnaire is an instrument, right?
Yes.
So I want you to design the instrument. If you say you're going to develop questions, I'm saying we beyond that now. We are at a stage where you need to develop those questions.
Or it's the questions that we are talking about.
Yes, I'm looking at questions that you are asking me, which are linked to your risk management strategy for the small businesses, so that I can have a sense of what I'm dealing with here.
Yeah, I see, Prof, what you are saying.
Because the first thing you're going to ask me as a recipient of your questionnaire will be, are you male, female, or other? Some demographic kind of data, isn't it?
That's the structuring of the questionnaire.
Yes, that's what I'm asking you to say. Where are you and how would you handle it? Just for demonstration of an understanding.
I was just on the process of brainstorming about how my questionnaire will look like. I haven't yet started putting it onto the paper.
Okay. Okay. So you are brainstorming using your, but you already, your brainstorm it should be informed by the objective, you say.
Exactly.
Okay, so you have not yet started putting some of those questions
on paper, yes,
together.
On paper, yeah.
Okay, And you know for a fact that once you have done the questionnaires, once you have formulated the questions, you're going to subject them, you're going to pilot test them.
Oh, yeah.
So in other words, you're going to give them to me or Kagiso or Godfrey as one of those people that you want to interview because they're maybe in small business, just to look for clarity and remove ambiguities and so on and so forth.
That's true.
Okay, so you're not there yet.
I'm not there yet.
Okay, fair enough. Let me hear what the others have to say regarding their own stages where they are, so we can engage them as well. Is it Silizi? Welcome. Can you hear us? Please unmute. Okay, let's take Kwenzi in the meantime. Go ahead, Kwenzi.
Good afternoon, Professor and colleagues.
Good afternoon.
Okay. I am at the stage of I've been cleared by the ethics committee, got approval from the department. Now I want to pilot my research instrument. I want to gather to give a pretest. My topic or my research is on the effect or the effectiveness of using erroneous examples and correct examples to teach mathematics at grade 9 level, algebraic linear equations rather. Now I've designed some few questions. If I
sorry, Kwenzi, repeat that. Your what is your topic about?
Using erroneous and correct examples to teach grade 9 algebraic linear equations.
So using erroneous examples?
Yes, erroneous and correct.
Okay, so you mean examples that are wrong?
Examples that are wrong, yes, to teach algebraic linear equations at the grade 9 level.
Okay. Now
I have designed some questions. I need assistance to find out if they are enough to collect the data I want.
The proposal. You don't mind if we engage you, right?
No problem, sir.
Oh, okay. To me, the proposals, I'm not sure I'm following exactly, but please guide me there. So you formulated it in a negative sense. In other words, what I'm trying to say is that there's a positive way of formulating a statement, there's a negative way of formulating a statement. Are you saying you're looking at the erroneous, using erroneous examples to teach mathematics?
Yes. How effective is it be? Does it improve learner performance if I use erroneous examples? Do they understand better than using only correct examples in my teaching?
Oh, okay. But so the point, what are you then focusing on? Are you then going to focus on the erroneous examples?
Yes.
In relation to whether they are effective in teaching or not. What are you going to use as a measure of the effectiveness? So you're going to bring. Okay, sorry, I interjected.
I want to find if using erroneous example will improve their performance. I give them a pre-test, then I do my intervention using erroneous examples, pointing out the common mistakes or common errors that learners actually commit. Now, after highlighting that one there, and teaching using the example, the errors they would have committed in the pre-test. I now would test them thereafter.
But why do you want to test using the erroneous example, not the the correct examples? What is your hypothesis? What is your assumption?
My hypothesis is using erroneous examples has a significant effect on learner performance, or it improves learner performance. That is my suggestion, because I would be highlighting their errors they normally commit through the misconception they may have. So in highlighting the misconceptions in the common errors that they normally commit, I teach using that one there. Then I would test them thereafter. I hope they would have actually cleared their misconceptions.
Okay, so your hypothesis is that when you use the erroneous examples, they learn, it has got some significant impact on their learning.
Yes, sir.
What is the? Yeah, please pardon us because we won't know the whole proposal in details, but we just want to pick up the few technical research discussion that we can take out of it. So if that was to then be the case, you are looking at bringing what, erroneous examples, or how are you going to generate the erroneous examples in order for you to look at the impact?
I've designed a test in which I make mistakes. The mistakes that learners normally commit. Then I say, identify where I made a mistake. What should I have done? And do it in the correct way. If you identify that I made a mistake, now correct it and solve it the correct way.
Okay.
Yes.
And then when they do that and they got it right, what would you be saying? Would you then be saying they have learned the correct way of what you're teaching them? Or
yes, that is what I hope, that if they are able to identify where I went wrong and they correct me, they understand what they should be doing.
Fair enough. But what happens if they are not able to do so because remember the examples are wrong.
Yes.
But they are not able to identify them, and they think that those examples are correct. How do you deal with that? Would you say it's not effective? How would you handle that one?
In that case, now, if they don't see that there is a mistake and they say the wrong working is correct, I now know that they have a misconception that needs to be corrected.
They have a what?
A misconception that actually lead them to think that those wrong steps or working procedures are correct.
Oh, I see. But you have to teach them the right things first, so that they can then know the wrong things. Is that where is the correct teaching then comes in? Do you do it first? In other words, you teach them first the right things. You give them an assignment or a test or whatever you call it, which is incorrect, in order for you to compare whether the right and the wrong can be spotted or what. I wouldn't know the wrong unless I've been exposed to the right.
Yes, that's true.
So I want to know if you first take them through the right, and then you give them the wrong, so that you can see the extent to which they are able to identify the right, or how does it work? Because I'm trying to determine the type of research you are undertaking at the moment.
Okay, I will teach them using the correct way. This is done this way, the right procedure.
Okay.
Then I will now give a wrongly worked example for them to identify where I went wrong.
Oh, okay.
Now,
So
if they
yeah,
are able to do so, they understand. But if they make the same mistakes after having taught how to do the right thing, it now shows that they have some misunderstanding regarding how problems, that type of problems should be solved.
okay. Your proposal, at what stage are you now?
I now want to collect the data.
So it has been it has been passed through, and you're at the stage where you are collecting data.
Yes, sir.
What is the sample size where data is going to be collected, and what is the approach that you are following? You know, it sounds quantitative, numbers, numeric than non-numeric.
It's mixed method.
Okay.
I'm using mixed method research. Yes.
Now, are you talking? I hear is like students. Will students at a certain grade be your target? In other words, your unit of analysis.
Yes, grade 9.
So so you'll be taking the grade 9 through this process. So how big is the sample size?
Oh, my sample, I need 80. 40 for the control and 40 for the experiment.
Okay, so you've got both the experimental and the control group.
Yes, sir.
So that sounds independent dependent variable. So you've got those that you're going to give erroneous examples, and how do you deal with the control group?
The control group, I will just use correct examples. Then I would compare between the two groups which group will perform better. The one I that was taught using correct examples only, or the one that was.
Okay, so the experimental group you will give the wrong examples.
Yes.
And the control group you just give the correct examples all the way to compare the two groups' performance after a while.
Yes, sir.
But now are you doing a pre-test? Are you testing them before so you can establish at what level they both are?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. So you'll give them first the test to determine where the whole group, combined is, and then you split them into experimental and control group.
I'm using different schools.
You are using different
schools.
Okay.
So
yeah, but for you are using different group for both experimental and control group, or are you using different school? One being for how are you using them?
One school is the experimental school, and the other one is the control school.
Okay, all right. So basically, we can look at this school being the experimental and the other school being the control, and the school that is a control. But you still have to test both of them first, isn't it, to determine?
Yes, that's the instrument I'm developing now, so that I pre-test both groups.
Yeah, because it will make sense if you measure. So that, in other words, you have to do the pre-measure, and then so that when you do the post-measurement, you are able to compare the what becomes the intervention is the test.
The intervention will be with the experimental group. After giving them the pre-test, I will now teach them using erroneous examples, highlighting their own problem they would have shown in the pre-test to teach them. Then I will test them thereafter.
Okay, that sounds interesting. And what will be the value of them doing the test in the context of study? It's so just for ethical clearance?
I didn't get the question clear.
Okay. In other words, if you have got two schools and you're doing experimental and control, and the other ones are going to get the wrong erroneous examples, the other one are consistently going to get correct examples. I'm saying when they do the test now, whatever that you'll be administering at a certain point, is there value? Will that, I take it that when you issue the test, you're going to have to mark it or something. So,
Yes.
so there must be those who will get some points. I'm saying, what is the value of that to the academic learning? Is it important or not necessarily?
No, it's not for it's not for grading. It's just for my studies. I indicated that in the assessment letters, or that whatever test they are going to write is not for marks.
Oh, okay. It's just for the purpose of you seeing which method to work. But now, what? Look, this will be maybe my last question. So you've got the control group. Are they equal? So you've got an equivalent.
Yes, I hope to have 40 for my control and 40 for my experimental group.
Oh, okay. You've built in, of course, the possibility that you may have less in one group and maybe more in the other.
Yes.
Because people do, you do have withdrawals, you do have all those kinds of things.
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting. That's interesting. Let's see how we see through this discussion. Anybody wants to? Sorry, I was interrogating you, but I just wanted to make sure that the principles of research are built into the discussion. So let's hope other students are able to pick up the concepts such as control group, experimental group, and so forth and so on.
Okay, thank you, Prof.
Mashikwani.
Yes, Prof.
Yes, can you tell us where you are in your own proposal? We won't judge you.
Okay, I'm doing an LLM degree in property law. I've already done the proposal. It was approved last year. And for the current year, I'm doing the dissertation. I'm at a stage where I'm on chapter 2. I'm dealing with the comments that my supervisor gave. The topic is evictions of unlawful occupiers during the coronavirus pandemic, a constitutional analysis.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. So the current chapter that I've worked on looks at the general principles that apply to evictions. So from the sources that I've identified, I've taken the sources from the journals, various journals, LexisNexis, Jutastat, a range of them. And I've also included specific case law, particularly the Constitutional Court decisions that have set principles, that have set certain precedents. So the precedent that I've extracted from the sources, I've identified 4, which I look to apply in a specific case that happened during the coronavirus.
Okay. So what is it? Is it quantitative? Is it qualitative? Is it mixed methods?
I think it's qualitative because mainly I'm doing the desktop, and I've identified a specific, let me say, cases that have sort of the common thread where you find that there has been evictions that are not consistent with the law that applies to the country, like which are inconsistent with the Constitution as well as the set precedents over the years.
Oh, so there will be no need to look at the evictors and the evicted.
No, not that. Not
You just there will be no conversation that you'll have with. You'll just go through the cases and you'll use the documentary evidence.
Yes.
Okay, that sounds qualitative, indeed. Now you are at the stage where. So how did you collect data? You used the Nexus, and the other sources.
The law journals.
Oh, okay, all right. So, and then how wide, how wide and broad did you go? Did you focus on specific eviction in specific area, country, region, world?
I focused on South Africa, but
yes.
Specifically identified cases where there was a development of a legal principle between 2000 and now. It's not quite a lot, but those cases are consistent in terms of, for example, dealing with a specific principle in relation, for example, meaningful engagement, where you found that from the Grootboom case, the Constitutional Court, considered that aspect and how the specific role players in evictions dealt with a meaningful engagement with the people facing eviction. In Cape Town, there's, I think, about 3 cases, and then particularly in Johannesburg, within the city of Johannesburg, there are specific cases which are like landmark cases, the Blue Moonlight, those that specifically deal with that aspect, even if the circumstances could be different. So I've identified them like that.
Oh, okay. So you would then say, in terms the number of cases, does it matter or doesn't it matter?
I think it matters. So I've looked at, I think, about 10 cases: the city of Johannesburg, city of Cape Town, Ekurhuleni, Tshwane, and Port Elizabeth. So that at least I think there would be sufficient base to conclude on some principles that indeed from that period to that period, this is how that aspect or the rule has developed.
Oh, I see. How in terms of your preliminary finding, how are they comparable?
They are comparable in a sense that, for example, you look at the specific players or players that have a legal obligation towards unlawful occupiers. With the first aspect, there should be a variable way, like dealing with unlawful occupiers. That's number one. So if people are living in a particular area, whether it's privately owned or publicly owned, and the fact that they are they find themselves in a situation where they are recognized as illegal. So that's one variable throughout, which I think is important. I've made sure that in all the cases that I've identified, there's that aspect where there is an unlawful occupier, and then where the second one, where there's a role played by the state, either municipality or province, where they have identified the need to move those people out of the areas where they are living. So the role played and the fact that there is limitations to engage meaningfully with those occupiers. So where it's clear that the municipality or the province have not put much emphasis on meaningful engagement, I think that one, I've made sure that, that aspect, as it developed from that era to now, I've checked that something like that happens or has happened, and look at the extent to which has happened. What was the response of the courts, the High Court, the Supreme Court of Appeal, the Constitutional Court, if it gets to that level. So there's consistency in those cases. I've looked at the elements that would apply and how they've been decided by the courts.
Oh, great. So would you then look at, I'm just picking one or two of the variables. Will the meaningful engagement be one of the consistent variable that you are assessing in all the cases, if I may ask?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
It is.
So it's a variable that can determine whether or not, you know, the eviction is in line with the with the law or not.
Yes.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
And
That's
so, sorry, and
yeah.
so are the other variables I've selected that I'm applying. So these are the general principles that are found that are applied or should apply when you know, a party institutes an eviction against occupiers which are considered as illegal or unlawful.
So what is how do you measure, what is the measure that you then use to determine whether the engagement, or, you know, has been meaningful enough, you know, to, how do you measure that? Well, what is the measurement? Is there any actually?
Yes, there is the precedent set in the Grootboom decision, where it was found that the court found that although there were meetings between the municipality and the occupiers, the court found that there hasn't been meaningful engagement. So there's a development of the rule that the engagement shouldn't just be a meeting just for the sake of sitting and talking. It's got to go to the level of being meaningful by also sharing more or further information, detailed information with the people that are going to be evicted, disclosing where exactly they are going to be moved to, also providing information on the alternative, where the alternative land will be, where people will be moved to, and how long is it going to take, and giving them some assurance that they are being moved for a particular period and they will be provided by the state, you know, with accommodation, as it's the state's legal obligation to provide those people with housing. So on meaningful engagement, I think it's easy to sift through or to go through the detail to establish from the case, you know, from when it started, the extent to which the engagement has been meaningful or was not meaningful.
Wow, that's quite, it must be of interest to you, this discussion and the work that you have covered thus far.
Yes.
Are you confirming that it is exciting?
Yeah, it is interesting, because I wouldn't, even from the time I started, I mean, I was very clear that this is what I'm interested in. I would like to do this research covering this specific topic.
Yeah, it sounds really very interesting. I think it's gonna be quite a, you know, it's going to be quite groundbreaking, you know, as soon as, especially in terms of just advancing the socio-economic rights of the vulnerable and the poor. So it sounds good.
Yes.
Okay. Is there anybody else that want to get on with this discussion, or you feel that we should move ahead? We've been progressing quite well. For those who thought that they are waiting for us to start. Is there any? I think there is somebody who wants to comment. I can't really see on my side. There's someone who wants to comment or something.
Hello.
Or is it Clara? Hello? Is it Clara?
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, please
How are you,
proceed.
sir? No, No, I just joined now. I was listening to the last speaker, what she was saying, because I didn't even know. I just joined maybe like 5 minutes ago.
What stage are you of your proposal, your research proposal?
Yeah, I just submitted the last one I submitted with my supervisor was the research questions.
When you say the last one, what do you mean?
I mean, what I submitted to my supervisor.
Yes.
Yeah, because I've submitted the introduction and the objectives of my study. And then the last one I submitted last week was the research questions.
Okay, research question of what? What is the topic or the problem, the area of interest that you are going to investigate?
All right, I am researching on mental health issues.
Yes.
Yeah. How does stress?
Mental health issues where?
Yes. How does stress?
Yes.
Hello?
Where? Yes. Where about?
Stress, self-adjustment, self-efficacy.
Yes, we can hear you, but we just want you to give it to us in a narrowed way. Are you looking at Brazil or Argentina?
Actually, like I said earlier on, what I was trying to study is about stress. How does stress affect a learner? My case study, I'm using grade 7 learners.
Okay.
So during the time of lockdown, so yeah. I want to find out the impact or the effects of stress on their motivation of these grade 7 learners in the course of COVID-19. So the last, like I said, the last thing I submitted with my supervisor was the research questions.
Yes, but remember the world is wide. So I want to know how wide have you gone?
Sorry, I didn't hear you very well.
I'm saying the world is very wide. How wide did you go?
Yeah, because when I started, I was able to formulate like 7 questions. But my supervisor was like, these are going to be too much for you, that I must narrow it down to 4 questions, which was what I did maybe last week, and I submitted to him. But even I'm supposed to be having meeting with him maybe sometime this week or next week. I was thinking, like you said, rightly said, that it's going to be very wide because of the variables, the 3 variables plus the dependent variables. They're going to be too much for me. So I want to see if we can narrow it to maybe 2 variables instead of the 3 variables, because I have to look at the 3 variables, which is going to take a lot of, it's going to be too wide for me, actually.
Yeah, and I'm also looking at it also from a scope point of view. Are you also going to do, I mean, this mental health and stress related, is it going to go beyond the borders of the continent or not?
No, I'm going to do it in South African here, using the Gauteng as my a place I'm going to use, not worldwide, kind of.
Using what? As using what?
I mean Gauteng. I'm going to use Gauteng.
Oh, okay. So there's a specific side that you have selected.
Yes, and this is also what I want to discuss with him, because even in the research topic, I didn't narrow it to Gauteng, but when I now looked at it, I felt like, no, I should say case study, meaning Gauteng, instead of just leaving it just like that, because maybe somebody that is reading it might think, oh, where is it? Is going to all over South Africa or Africa?
Yeah,
or
but isn't Gauteng also quite wide?
All right, I think
no, I'm asking because it's a province now.
Yes.
So do you have a specific individuals, companies, sectors that you are looking at, or is it all of us in Gauteng?
No, I'm going to use grade 7 learners.
Or is it grade 7 learners of all schools in Gauteng?
No, that means what I'm gonna do is to maybe choose depending on my supervisor, the advice is gonna give me maybe 7 to 10 schools like that.
Okay, so it's not that has not yet been sorted out.
All right.
No, I'm asking because you can't
No,
remember
it has
grade.
not, because he has not responded to me, because I sent an email. I wanted maybe to have a meeting with him so that I can discuss one-on-one with him.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but in the meantime, think through, because if you're going to do the whole of Gauteng, that is going to be very difficult. But then again, you need to look at what is more convenient, because if you take grade 7 learners,
Right.
there might be thousands and thousands of grade 7 learners in Gauteng, and maybe you don't need all of them.
All right.
So just think through that, so that you've got a narrower scope that you are working with.
All right.
But since you said you're going to have a one-on-one, let's allow the one-on-one to assist and guide you on how far and how wide you can go. But immediately, you need to get to a stage where you then have 1 or 2, 3 schools that you can think about, because even one school should be sufficient.
All right. All right. I'm glad to hear that, sir.
Yeah, because I mean, if you take Gauteng and you don't specify, I mean, now that you say grade 7 learners, I already know that I'm not on your list of possible participants and the people that are on the platform as well. So it's always easier when you narrow and you discuss your topic in specific terms, so that we know what we are looking at.
All right. All right. Yeah, I'm getting you. I'm getting what you're saying, and I'm also really happy about it, because I was thinking about it yesterday. I said no, because I didn't specify maybe even I'm gonna use 7, but I was like looking at maybe if I could use maybe 7 to 10 schools. But from what you're saying now, 7 to 10 schools might be too wide also for me.
Yes, I mean, it depends on whether you're looking for numbers or you're looking for a particular variable that you want to measure. Because, you know, if you just say you're going to do mental health, I would say there is mental health issues in Mozambique. There are mental issues in Madagascar, and there's mental health issues in Salvador, all over the world. So when you start narrowing it down, it makes much more sense.
All right. All right. I'm hearing you, and
Okay.
I'm glad.
No, that's fine. Just for the discussion going forward, we are still stuck on not stuck, but we just trying to make sure that we outline step 5 of the process of research.
All right.
Now it's fine, Clara. I think we can now release you. You can mute yourself.
All right, sir.
Okay. So
all right, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Let's just see where we are in the process. For those of you who might have already submitted the proposal, some of this process will be familiar. But today we are still spending time on the data collection phase of research, or the process of research. Here, this is very important, because that's where you are required to organize the data related to the problem and its sub-problems. So here, you really have to spend time, because that's where you're going to collect data which will inform your research study. Now, let's just again remind ourselves as to when do we use quantitative method. I mean, earlier on, I think earlier on when we were engaging, well, at least when we engage her now, it sounds like she's still going to sort out her methodology. But when we engage, is it Mashikwane? I think it was. When we were engaging her, she was talking about qualitative method. So for her, this might not necessarily be something that she would like to talk to. Because here, we are trying to assist in determining when do we think it's the right time to use quantitative method, which is what we are focusing on today. Guideline is that there are 6 main types of research questions that quantitative research is suited to find answers to. So in other words, if any of the things that you're doing is asking these questions, then quantitative research might just be best suited. First is when we want a quantitative answer. In other words, an answer that has got more number, that is more number based in it. For example, if the students have their choice, how many of them choose to study experiential English, for example? So the reason why we need to use quantitative research to answer this kind of question is obvious. We just want to know how many classes we need to put together, which is what the university will do. How many students are going to attend research facilitation? So that is for decision making. So if you've got a question like that, which is a quantitative, which require a quantitative answer, you then can conduct quantitative research. You do that when also there is a numerical change, which can likewise only accurately be studied using quantitative methods. For example, are the numbers of students in our university rising or falling? Or is achievement in English of our students going up or down? So that's a numerical question that we want to know. UNISA will look at it and say, where do we stand insofar as students that are registering at the university is concerned? When we also do quantitative methods, or we conduct quantitative research, which is useful for conducting audience segmentation. So it is done by dividing the population into groups whose members are similar to each other and distinct from other groups. So if you want to know, for example, when you do census, you want to know how many Indians, how many colors, how many blacks, how many whites, and so forth and so forth. You know, you need quantitative research for that. Quantitative research is useful to quantify opinions, attitudes, and behaviors and find out how the whole population feels about a certain issue. If we want to know how South Africans feel about a certain issue, we want their opinions, their attitudes, and their behavior. It's advisable that you conduct quantitative research. When you want to find out the exact number of people who think in a certain way, to set a baseline, or to ensure that the students can share some comments or ideas to a new course, then we use quantitative research. So some of you are looking at it from that point of view where you need to set some baselines. Quantitative research is also suitable to explain some phenomenon, e.g., what factors predict the general English proficiency in the 4th year students? And I think from what I was hearing earlier on, I think it's from, I think from, who's the gentleman that we spoke to earlier? It's more looking at students to predict the efficiency or the effectiveness of erroneous teaching. So there you might think about quantitative research, or where you look at what factors are related to changes in student English achievement over time, or mathematics as he said. So there you also need to look at quantitative research. Quantitative research is also useful when you're testing hypotheses. For example, you might want to explain something which can either be whether the relationship between student achievement and their self-esteem and social background. So where you want to determine, or explain the relationship, you may want to use quantitative research. Now, I hope I'm still audible and you're able to see the slides. Let's look at some of the examples of the research questions that are suited for quantitative analysis. Obviously, the quantitative questions, as we spoke about them earlier with belief, is that they are more closed of course, you do have few open-ended, but they're more closed questions because they're more looking into the numbers, as we know, it's numerical related strength. For example, in its simplest form, a quantitative research question will try to quantify the variable that you wish to examine. It is very difficult if you listened and you followed the discussion that we had with Mashikwan, I think, where one of the principle that, or the variable that she's trying to establish meaningful participation to really look at it from a quantitative point of view. I think is more looked from a qualitative point of view, but there's nothing that says it cannot be quantified. Now, in this case, we look at examples. We say, what is the daily consumption of soft drinks of students at a particular university? So these are your examples of questions that are suitable for a quantitative collection, because you need numbers. Is the daily consumption? How many soft drinks do they consume? What is the percentage of students in a particular university who consume soft drinks daily? Another researcher might wish to identify the difference between two or more groups on a single or multiple variables. For instance, what is the difference in the daily consumption of soft drinks between male and female students at a particular university? In other words, you want to know, are males consuming more soft drinks than female or the other way around? This is also helpful if you want to start stocking up. I mean, you can change that from soft drinks to alcoholic drinks and so forth. Finally, a researcher might wish to explore the relationship between one or more variables on one or more groups. This type of research is associated with experiments and identification of causal relationship. Now here we can look at what is the relationship between weather and soft drink consumption of a particular university student. So in other words, when it's winter season, do we see a lot of consumption of soft drinks or not? You know, so that then makes for a quantitative question, which can be used to determine the quantities in different seasons of the year. When we look at when shouldn't we use quantitative methods? There are, of course, other types of questions that are not well suited for quantitative methods. The first situation where quantitative research will fail is when we want to explore a problem in depth. So if you want to explore the reasons for the evictions in depth, it may not be suited to use quantitative study. So quantitative research is good at providing information in breadth from a large number of units. But when we want to explore a problem or a concept in depth, this method is found to be too shallow, so it may not be appropriate. Quantitative research is well suited for the testing of theories and hypotheses, as we said earlier. What quantitative methods cannot do very well is to develop those hypotheses and the theories. So the hypothesis to be tested may come from a review of literature or theory, but can also be developed using exploratory qualitative research. So if issues to be studied are particularly complex, and in-depth qualitative study is more likely to pick up on this than a quantitative study. So in other words, if it's too complex, it's desirable that you go for qualitative study. There's a limit to how many variables can be looked at in any one quantitative study, and partly because in quantitative research, it is the researcher who defines the variable to be studied. Finally, while quantitative methods are better at looking at cause and effect, qualitative methods are more suited to looking at the meaning of particular events or circumstances. So if what you are looking at is the meaning of events or circumstances, it is better to use qualitative methods than quantitative methods. So, ladies and gentlemen, now you know for a fact as to when and how do we then use qualitative research. So the reason why I'm doing this is just so that we go back to where we started when we said we are doing data collection, because at times what students tend to forget is that once you have defined that you're going to follow quantitative, everything else that you're going to have to do must at least demonstrate quantitative, so that you don't get the concept mixed along the way. Now, before we talk about measurements, which is what some of you probably have done, I just want to first, let's just look at the aim of measurement. The aim of measurement is to achieve the most accurate judgment possible. And measurement seeks to minimize the amount of errors, measurement errors that we can think about, because one moment you measure this, but the next moment you measure something else. So let me just check with the students that have already completed their dissertations, or they're about to, or those that have collected data, as to how did they, or how do they intend to deal with issues of measurements, especially when it relates to instruments that they are going to use to collect data. Ezizani, can you hear us? Ezizani, can you hear us?
Afternoon, Prof. Yes, I can hear you.
Yes. Where are you in terms of your own proposal, and how do you deal with the instruments of data collection?
Yeah, I'm not there yet. I've been busy with chapter 1, and unfortunately, I had to change the supervisor, so I was just allocating another supervisor now in June. So we have not done anything since June. So that's where I am, Prof.
Okay, so you are doing chapter 1, meaning the proposal has gone through.
Yeah, the proposal was approved last year.
So how did you deal with the issue of measurements in your data collection in the proposal, if you have?
Yeah, I will be using the questionnaires.
Okay.
Yes.
So
my research is in the national departments, the senior managers in the national departments of public service.
okay, so the questionnaire that you will be administering to the senior managers, is it, how did you measure it? Measurement, I mean, how did you make sure that it asks the questions that need to be asked, and you measure the variables that you need to measure?
I'm not there yet. I'm still going to develop. I've just started with the concept. I have not developed it yet.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. I suppose you are asking to be released from this engagement because you are not there yet. I mean, you've said it more than once. Usman?
Good day, Prof.
Yes, Usman.
Thank you so
about
much
the measurement. Where are you in the process?
Yeah, in my the stage of data analysis.
Oh, so you are at the data analysis stage.
Yes, sir.
How did you deal with the measurements?
I'm actually working on on cattle and pigs.
So repeat that there, Usman. I didn't hear that.
Yeah, I'm working on cattle and pigs.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically I'm just doing blood collection from those animals, and I'm also doing a questionnaire too.
Okay, the measurement, how about the measurements? Are you able to relate to it?
With the measurement, that I don't understand.
Oh, okay. You haven't spent time on that.
Yes, sir.
Anybody who has had any engagement on the units of measurements, like your ordinal, your interval, and your ratios?
Because mine is not related to that. Prof?
Yes.
Yeah, no, because mine doesn't have anything to do with measurement, because I there's according to the veterinary there, they gave us the static quantity of blood to be collected. And yes, sir. Because where I'm majorly having problem is on the questionnaire.
Where you had there? Sorry, Usman. Where you had the what?
On the questionnaire.
Yeah.
So that is where I'm struggling.
Oh, you're struggling with the questionnaire. Which part of the questionnaire are you struggling with?
Okay. Actually, my topic is seroprevalence and risk factors associated with toxoplasmosis and cysticercosis in cattle and pigs in Mpumalanga.
So it's more animal focused.
Yes,
cattle and pigs.
And pigs, yes, sir.
Okay. And then what is the struggle with the, is it the questionnaire or you saying what?
Is the questionnaire. So obviously I'm going to be determining the risk factors that are associated with those parasites, toxoplasmosis and cysticercosis.
So what kind of, how do you test? What are you testing there? What are you meant to investigate?
I'm testing for 2 parasites.
Oh,
One,
okay.
Yeah, in those 2 parasites in pigs, and 2 parasites again in cattle.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yes, so
sounds, yeah.
Yeah. No, that is just where I'm. I know one of those things. Question to be asked there is the cause of the parasite on human.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're just going to be administering the questionnaire, like what are the major causes? Why are those animals being affected?
So it's not experimental. What is it?
It's an experiment, yeah. But currently, I've gotten my samples already. I've done my sample analysis.
Okay.
I've done my sample analysis, and I'm also going to be doing the questionnaire, 2 stuff there.
Oh, okay. Okay. So what do you use to do the analysis, the sample analysis?
Not the sample analysis. It's serological method.
Oh, okay. So you use serology to test to analyze the sample.
Yeah, just to know if they're positive or not.
Okay, so it's for both parasites, for both cattle and for pigs.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
How do these parasites relate to each other? Are they the same or they're different according to what type of animal you're working on?
Yeah, they are different. One is toxoplasmosis, and while the other one is cysticercosis.
Okay.
Yes, sir. The parasite is mostly from mostly from it could be from their feed, like food, water, and all that.
Okay.
So, yes, sir. And majorly, the other way around, sorry, what am I saying? Now because I'm working on the prevalence, I just want to know the prevalence there, how it has eaten up there, how the disease have gone there in Mpumalanga. So I'm just working on 2 districts in Mpumalanga there.
Oh, okay. So the area is within the Mpumalanga province.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, sir. So I'm still trying to structure my my questionnaire. So that's where I'm currently.
But why would you need I'm not sure. Do you need a questionnaire for that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But then who is this questionnaire going to be targeted at?
The animal owners.
the owners of the animals.
Yes, sir.
But are you also interviewing them?
Yeah, that's my next step now. I'm going
Okay,
back there.
maybe let me ask this question. Is yours mixed methods? In other words, are you using both questionnaires and, because it sounds like, I mean, the sample test and stuff, it looks like is mixed method. Is it
Yes,
not?
sir. Mixed method, sir. Mixed method.
Oh, okay. All right. That's interesting. Very interesting. But I think the point that was raised earlier, let's see if it's relevant to you, Usman. I don't see, but I think somebody's hand was up and then they dropped it. Was it Moses or is it Edgar? Yes.
Yeah, it's me, Prof. Just on the questionnaire topic, you mentioned that he probably doesn't need a questionnaire. I wanted to ask, is a questionnaire not compulsory? Is it possible to do a research and then not have a questionnaire and then still get outputs from maybe secondary data?
Look, the question, the instruments to collect data, whether qualitative or quantitative, is compulsory. Ne?
Okay.
Whether you are doing qualitative or quantitative, there must be an instrument that you use to collect data, because data on its own needs some collection. So okay. Right now, the reason why we are talking more about the questionnaire is that if you look at, maybe let's go there, because if you look at the quantitative research, largely it uses questionnaires. Okay, let's just use this as an example, so that we talk about it. But please proceed with your question. So, I just wanted to open this slide so that we can talk to it.
Okay. No, my question was solely just based on what you just reiterated, that he mentioned something and then you asked him if he doesn't need a questionnaire for that.
No, the thing I was asking in the context, I thought, because he's talking parasites and animals, the questionnaire might not be necessary, because remember, the questionnaires apply more when you're going to be using it with humans, because with animals is a different kind of study. So
okay,
yes.
I think it's insinuation of animals. You want to check the counts, maybe which animals got infected by the bacteria that you're talking about or whatever, and which didn't.
The filling. No. I was more interested in who's gonna fill why does he need the questionnaire and who's gonna fill it up. And when he starts saying the owners of the kettles and stuff, then I was answered.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, I wanted to know what, because you can't remember when you're looking at natural science and other sciences where you are not dealing with human beings. It's very difficult to use a questionnaire to collect data, unless you're going to interface with the human beings in that environment.
Okay, no, it makes sense.
But at least let's whilst we've got this discussion, Edgar, let me just take us through the questionnaire situation, so that at least we can dispense of this discussion as well properly. For example, if you look at the questionnaire, it's doubtless that it's one of the primary sources of obtaining data in any research endeavor. Remember, we are looking at quantitative data collection. So a questionnaire is one of your primary sources of obtaining data. If it's appropriately developed, a questionnaire has many advantages. So in other words, it is important to develop it in such a way that it's so appropriate, because then it will give you many advantages. It is one of the efficient means of collecting data on a large scale basis. So if you've got a large scale where you want to collect data, a questionnaire then becomes one of your most reliable source of collection of data. It can be sent simultaneously to a great number of people. So you can sit in your office and dispatch thousands and thousands of questionnaires, at the same time. So you don't need to wait for anything else once your questionnaire is ready. So when you're designing a questionnaire, as a researcher, you should ensure that it is valid, it is reliable, and it is unambiguous. So you need to make sure that all those principles are are clear, that is, there's a, there's validity of it. You know what exactly you can expect of it. Is it reliable? So in other words, it's consistent in the way that you are designing it, and it's unambiguous, because you want people, to be efficient as they complete it, so they don't have to keep on, dropping their jaws and asking themselves, what does this mean? So it must be unambiguous. So on the whole, questionnaire can appear in 3 types. It can be a closed-ended or structured questionnaires. It can be open-ended or unstructured questionnaires. It can be a mixture where you've got closed-ended and open-ended questionnaires. So, where they ask you, what do you think about, they give you the different options, and then they say, please explain. You can have a mixture as well. Closed-ended questionnaires provide the inquirer with quantitative or numerical data. So when you've got closed-ended questions that are developed, you know that you're going to get numerical data. Whilst on the other hand, open-ended questionnaires give you qualitative or text information. So you can then use a questionnaire to collect both qualitative and quantitative data, because when you've got open-ended and you want people to explain, that then becomes quantitative. So in other words, there you are looking at the quantitative data, that qualitative data that gets provided to you. Now let's just quickly look at the measurements. Some of you, when you're doing your statistics, you might have, dealt with issues around the 3 different types of measurements, or are there 4? Ordinal scale, for example, interval, and the ratio. So again, it's important for you to look at the questionnaire in terms of which measurement does it more fall, within. Ordinal scale, for example, this one is used to classify rank categories, because when you look at the questionnaire, you either have categories which you are going to rank. I mean, if you listen to the earlier discussion on the erroneous examples that was mentioned, there are categories that can be ranked there, or you rank them to say this will be a category that will be the first part or the second part, and so forth. So in ordinal scales, the number refer to rank in order. So, for example, when you look at the questionnaire, where you've got the 5-point scale, maybe 5 being strongly agree, and 4 being I agree, 3 being not sure, 2 being disagree, and 1 being strongly disagree. So those numbers refer to a rank. So somebody can then put a 5, meaning they strongly agree. And you can strongly agree with something for which that is more on the negative or on the positive. Other cases might be strongly disagree as 5, and so forth. So you just need to remember that those numbers are important. So the intervals between ranks are not the same. For example, there are intervals that you put between ranks, which are not necessarily the same. So the numbers represent categories, not an amount. Whilst on the other hand, there is an interval scales, which demonstrate equal distances between units of measurement. So this one represents the continuum of characteristics from less to more, to more. For example, the difference between 2 and 3 is the same as the difference between 3 and 4, or 4 and 5. So there, the distances are equal between the units of measurement. On the ratio scale, for example, this one demonstrates equal distances between units of measurement. Again, they've got an absolute 0 point and indicate absolute amounts of the characteristics measured. For example, someone who's 6 feet tall is twice as tall as someone who is 3 feet tall. Those are the ratio scales that can be used. So again, if you do your questionnaire, you look at it to say, is it the ratio measurement, is it the interval measurement, or is it the ordinal measurement? If I've got 100 rands, I'm better off than somebody with 50 rands, because there's a difference between 100 and 50. So that kind of measurements. But I'm sure some of you who have done mathematics and statistics, will understand this a lot more better. But I suggest to all of you to really go and do some reading on the scales, on the measurement scale, because they are very important when you look at your instruments that you use for measurement. Because the instruments that you use to collect data must be accurate. What do you use to measure liquid is different from what you use to measure substances and so forth. So it's important to know that your measurements are correct, because when you've got the right measurement, you are able to get the right information. If you measure distance between Johannesburg and Pretoria, you need to use the right measurement, because if you don't, then it affects your internal validity. So what are the strategies that you can use to reduce errors in measurement? One is standardization of assessment. Here, what it means is you specify a process or protocol for administering the assessment. So you need to standardize that to say, I know for a fact that the distance from A to B, it works out, it works out this way. This is how I'm going to do it. And standardization, by the way, helps to reduce variability on how the rater administers the test. We need to know how and what you use to arrive at the measurement that you arrived at. So the methods of informing and training and ensuring accuracy of rater is another way of reducing measurement error. This one provides detailed assessment instructions or an administration manual. So training and credentialing those who will administer an assessment. So what it means here is, when you are going to involve other people in the data collection, you need to make sure that they are well informed, but they're also trained, so that you don't have different raters applying different measurements to the same matter. Now, some of you are now familiar with the manual, the instruction or the administration manual. When you buy something in a store of late, you'll find that it has got its own manual on how to assemble it. That's part of reducing measurement errors. Otherwise, if you don't have the training manual or the administration manual, the assembly manual, then we can do things differently, all of us. Repeated measures, where the characteristics of assessment seeks to measure where the characteristics of assessment, the assessment seek to measure fluctuate, raters take multiple measurements. So you'll do your pre-measurement, you'll do your, now where you've got the pre and the post and the current, so that you repeat the measurement all the time. And I'm sure you heard when I was engaging with, I keep on forgetting his name, on the mathematics, that he does pre-measurement, and then he has to do the measurement at a certain point, then he does the post-measurement. So it's repeated measures that he needs to apply. For example, the regression towards the mean, because the tendency of the extreme scores to be followed with scores that are more average. It's part of the regression that you need to be applied at the level of strategies to reduce measurements. Sorry, I seem to have lost. I seem to have lost the slides. Let's see. Am I still audible on your side?
Yes, on my side, I can hear you, Prof.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Momentarily, it was saying I'm inaudible. Okay, let's look at the data collection instruments. Again, these are data collection instruments from a quantitative point of view, where we are. Quantitatively, you can use in-person interviews. In-person interview consists of you as an interviewer asking the respondent questions in a face-to-face situation. So here you take, the interview takes place at the respondent's home, office, or wherever else that is taking place. So you can still have the questionnaire ready, and you come and you do the interview in person. So what do? You tick the things that I was meant to tick. So that's an instrument that you can apply quantitatively. Telephone interviews. Again, you can have a telephone interview which involves the presentation of a questionnaire by telephone. So I've got the questionnaire ready, list of questions, and I use the computer-assisted telephone interview system program. Computer-assisted telephone interview systems, which program a survey questionnaire directly into a computer. Now, what we do here is that the telephone interviewer, in this case, you as a researcher, then you read the questions from a television type screen and you record the answers directly on the terminal keyboard or directly onto the screen with a light pen. So what do? You're sitting there in front of the computer, you've got the list of questions, and then you just, as I answer them, you tick for me. Very, very efficient, very effective. It can be done. Omnibus Survey is another data collection instrument that you can use. But what does it mean? It is a type of telephone survey. Here, you as an interviewer, basically put in questions of special interest to individual clients. It is useful for pulse taking, when you want to know where you want to vote, who are you going to vote for, if the votes were to be declared today or tomorrow. So here you monitor opinions and attitudes regarding a certain issue. So it can be any issue. It doesn't matter what it is. So you do an omnibus survey. So it's often conducted once or twice a week, and the sample telephone numbers are computer generated. So we look at a sample, UNISA looks at it and say, they phone me, they phone you, they phone some few people, just to determine, what the opinions and the attitudes are, just to take some pulse. So as they say, it's pulse taking. Self-administered questionnaire. This is self-explanatory. Here, respondents fill out the self-administered questionnaire themselves. Unlike the in-person interview, you send it out, we fill it up, and the self-administered questionnaires are generally distributed through mail. Upon receipt of the questionnaire, the respondent fill it out and return it via mail to the researchers. It is very important for you to know some of these instruments, because when you design them, you must design them also with the mind of, is it going to be self-administered, or am I going to be required to do it myself, or am I just going to send it through by post so that I don't have to follow it through, other than just sending some reminders to those that I've administered it to. So it's important just to know these elements. Let's look at some of the basic question types. Now, there is a source there that you can go and check, but at least what I like is that it divides the questionnaires into 7 basic question types. There are questions that will be more looking into the quantity or the information. There's a question that can look into the category that you want to determine. There's a question that can look into the list or the multiple choice, where you give me different choices to make. There's a question that can look into the issues of scale. There's a question that should look into ranking. And there's a question that can look into the complex grade or the table. And there can also be questions that you formulate on the open-ended. So when you formulate the question, look at it and say, is it the quantity or information that I'm looking for? Is it the category? Is it the multiple choice? Is it the scale? Am I looking at the ranking? Am I looking at the complex grid? Or is it open-ended? So when similar questions are administered simultaneously to a large number of people, the acquired data are more identical, correct, and standard. So when you do the questions and you have formatted them in terms of the different, the basic question types, and you issue them immediately at the same time, correct and standard, you've got a better chance of acquiring data that is more identical, correct, and standard. So generally, a questionnaire might make use of one or several types of the questions that are listed above. So in other words, when you take a questionnaire, look at it and say, what are they looking for here? Is it quantity? Is it category? Is it multiple choice? Is it scale? Is it ranking, complex, and open? So somewhere they would say, they will even ask you a simple question. In terms of priority, where would you put poverty, unemployment, and so forth? So when you rank them and you say poverty comes first, unemployment comes second, inequality third, you are ranking them. So they can put questions in different ways, which answers to some of the 7 areas that we're saying we're listing above. Let me pause here and check with students, those that have designed questionnaires. How did they design their question? What was the guideline that they followed in designing the questionnaires? For those of you who have designed questionnaires, how did you go about it?
I haven't designed my questionnaire, but what I know is that the point that I have to bear in mind designing one is that it has to be brief and to the point, and I have to avoid using complex words in order to allow my participants to understand what is it that I'm addressing.
Okay.
Yes.
You want to share some examples if you have, as in a questionnaire, like
yes,
if you were to design one now, what would be the example that comes to mind?
Firstly, I will start by I'll categorize my questionnaire by using gender.
Okay.
And also I can select an occupation. Those are the, I think they appear as on group A. I forgot what.
So we're looking at biographical data.
Yes, thank you.
Or demographical.
I'll start by doing that.
Okay.
In order for me to understand the type of participants that I'll be. So now I'll arrange them by gender and go to occupation and also the number of years in a particular organization. Then
Okay.
I'll also arrange my questions as per the research questions that I have. Because with the questionnaires, I have to align it with the research question. In order for the questionnaire to serve its. And I also need to make sure that questionnaire is not too long, because most of the people become bored if you sign a long. No.
Yes, we can hear you, Cynthia.
And the content of my questionnaire, they don't have to be so guide.
Repeat that. Sorry, I couldn't hear that. You're getting softer now.
Oh, okay, sorry. Or the contents of my questionnaire should not be in such a way that it will appear as if I'm guiding my respondents.
Okay. You know what I'm actually asking, Innocentia, although you are saying the right things perfectly. What I'm asking is, are there examples that we can think about so that we don't say an example is? Because I think we're at a stage where we're trying to make it practical.
Practical, oh, okay.
So in other words, when you say you're going to have demographic data, you'll say to a person, where do you live? And, you know what, if you're looking at employment opportunities or people who are employed, you say, what type of work you do, or do you work? You know, those are we can associate with that. Although you are not giving me your name and your identities and stuff, but at least you are giving me biographical information that I can pull together.
Oh, okay. Or
Does it make sense?
Yes. Or the other thing I'll bear in mind while drafting one, I'm going to use the 5.5. It's 5 Likert point.
5.
It's 5 Likert point.
Oh, 5-point scale. Okay, yeah, the Likert scale.
5 Likert scale. Yeah, that's how I'm going to design mine.
But when do you, how do you, and when do you use it? Remember it has got different degrees, like it's 1 up to 5. Sometimes 1 is good, but sometimes 1 is bad. Sometimes 5 is good, sometimes 5 is bad.
Yes. Or you want me to give me an example on how am I going to draft mine?
If you can give one example of a question, so that we theoretically understand that the questionnaire, now you say it must be short, it must be unambiguous and so on. But if you give me one example of a short, unambiguous question, if you can.
For now, Prof, I won't be able to give one.
But
I haven't drafted the questionnaire.
But you do get the line of engagement.
Yes, I get it.
Because the idea here is that when you leave, you need to go back and say, because I want you, when you go back, to design a questionnaire, so that when we talk, we look at whether this questionnaire that we are now designing or has been designed, how does it compare to the tips that we are talking about here?
Oh yeah, I understand it.
Yeah, let's check whether there's somebody who wants to share with us the questionnaire that they've designed. If anybody, Sandy, have you designed a questionnaire, or where are you in terms of the questionnaire design?
Prof, I haven't designed any. The only thing that I did is that I adapted one. But I can just make it easier to say when you design, even though I did not design one, to say, first of all, you need to check first what is your research problem. And then that's where actually you'll actually be able to identify that, to say, okay, fine. When you look at your biographical, the one that we were talking about, what is it like that people that you actually want to interview, or your participants? Is it males? Is it females? That's where it comes in. And then you design that, and then that's where you go to the Likert scale. And then from there, after designing, you need to pilot study it first to check like the validity and reliability that you're talking about before you can come to the final one.
Okay, that sounds like a process. That sounds like a very smart process that you're outlining there.
Yes, but the one like I said, that I did not design any, I adapted one. So but the one that I adapted, yes, like you asked previously about, okay, you mentioned the validity and the reliability about the measuring instrument, the questionnaire. What happened is that, okay, fine, you check the questionnaire, the one that you adapt, what is it that is applicable? Like I mentioned that, okay, you look at your research problem first to say, okay, what is it that I need from there? And then what is it that I don't need? And then that's when you'll check the validity, whereby you check the content. And you also check your reliability, where you have to go through all the measuring instruments. And then you check the Cronberg alpha, where it will indicate whether this one is consistent or not. And then from there, then that's when you'll say, okay, fine, I can adapt this one and use it, and you modify it.
Okay, so your adaptation, you're adapting. Yes. Currently, you are doing an adaptation. So you've got. Yes. How do you want us to understand what you are doing as adaptation? Share with us.
Okay. With the adaptation part of it, let's say maybe you are dealing with stress. I'm just making an example. Sure. You are going to check all the questions that the questionnaires that are being designed concerning stress. Let's say maybe there is 1% or not even one, there are a lot of them. And then you check to say, okay, which one goes in hand with your content?
and which one match also your research problem. And then
Okay.
from there, you look at them and then you check to say, okay, this one, I think it's in line with what I want to measure. And then that's the one that you adapt, because some of them you'll find that, okay, it's 40 questions, but you only need 30. That meaning that you are not going to use 10, because like that 10 does not actually cover the content. Then you're going to take 30, but from that 30, you check, you actually modify them so that they can meet what you want to measure. Basically,
Okay.
that's 30 years.
So,
And
so
even when you, before you can even adapt that, remember, you also need to get permission from the developer
yeah.
to say, can I use or can I adapt your questionnaire? But like I said, that it's very important that before you adapt, you check the reliability, how consistent is that instrument that you want to adapt.
And also what you are actually meant to measure. What is it that you are measuring? Because
Yes.
it might be that other people are measuring other things and so forth.
Yes, like I said, that it boils back to your research problem. You go there and then it comes, and then when you cascade it, you also cascade it to your objectives and your research question.
Okay, let me check, Sandy, and sorry, I am putting on the spot. So let's use stress. So now you've got a, and I would like us to talk about that. You've got 40 questions.
Yes.
Right, and you only need, in your case, maybe you want to formulate 30 questions. Obviously, those questions will have different categories and they will be ranked differently. How do you adapt a question that is already, you can, by the way, so I've got no problem with the adaptation, but I just want somebody who's now listening to this conversation is sitting with, or she's sitting with a whole range of questionnaires that are coming from this way, that way, and they want to adapt.
Yes.
What do you typically do?
Okay, like I mentioned that, first of all, you check your research problem, ne?
Yeah.
And then the ranking, just that I'm not sure if maybe I'm answering your question, Prof. When you do the adaptation, let's say maybe I'm just making an example. Mahlangu designed a question, an instrument, okay, with all maybe the Likert scale rank, the Likert scale, yes. So you cannot change the Likert scale of Mahlangu and even the instrument. You can only adapt, but you cannot change the ranking, the rating scale, because that has already, how can I put it? It boils back to that issue to say this, it has been approved that is consistent. So you just modify it a bit so that it can fit your research problem and your objectives and whatever that you want to measure. But you cannot change the scale, because the moment when you change the scales, it means that you are designing your own questionnaire, whereby you need to pilot study it before then you can use it. I'm just making an example of the scale, yes.
Yes,
I'm not sure if, Prof, I'm answering you.
No. I'm liking the engagement, because it's more like what the other students can take out of the conversation that you're having.
Oh, okay, yes.
So it's not really a right or the wrong answer. It's an engagement.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Now tell me. Well, maybe let me release you on this one,
okay.
Sandy. I want somebody who can to talk to me about their understanding of the Likert scale.
Okay.
Because it's easy for us to talk about these things, only to find that maybe we've got a different. What is a Likert scale?
Okay, is the scale is the scale whereby I will try whereby it will actually the ratings is actually from the first until the last one, whereby it will, the ratings are just similar, whereby it will indicate that strongly agree, disagree. I think in the middle there's something like sometimes, and then disagree and strongly disagree.
Okay.
Yes.
So we can agree it's an instrument, is it not?
It's a scale, but okay. Okay, Prof. There is a scale that you use, like the scale from 1 to 5. That is a scale. But an instrument, I'm just going to make an example of an instrument. Let's say maybe you have brief resilience scale. That is an instrument. But like the ratings is the scale. But the top one, like the one whereby it says brief resilience, that is a measuring instrument. But when you start now measuring from 1 to 5, like let's say the question is, I bounce back is, I'm just making an example. And then you say you rate from 1 to 5, that is a scale. But like the whole thing from, maybe let's say it has 6 questions or 10 questions, that is an instrument.
Okay. Okay.
That's my understanding. Yes.
No, it's fine. It helps because I want us to talk about the Likert scale in the context of measuring what you want to measure, whether it's 5-point or 7-point scale.
Yes.
I'm looking at whether there's somebody whose hand is up. This one is a general question that we can talk about. All of us, because I'm sure some of us at some point when you develop a questionnaire, we're going to bump into the Likert scale. As I'm saying, it can be 5 points or 7 points. So a Likert scale is a question which is either 5-point or 7-point. So the choices that you are going to make as a respondent, they range from strongly agree to strongly disagree. So on the other end is strongly agree, and then on the other part of the scale is strongly disagree. You're always going to find those extreme or those degrees.
Yes.
So I want to know what is then a Likert scale, and how much of us in this platform are making use of it. But all Likert scale, one thing that we must also agree is that the Likert scale also have a midpoint. Like for example, it's 1, 2, and then you've got the 3, then there's a 4, 5. So there is a midpoint where you either neither you agree or you disagree. So you're somewhere in the middle. Those who are neutral, for those who are neutral.
Oh, yes.
So you do have those as well. But I want to just, all of us to talk about the Likert scale as one of the element within the quantitative study. Anybody who wants to relieve Santi from this interrogation with the Likert scale? I see other people seem to have other commitments, but maybe let me try Mashikwane. Mashikwane, I know yours was qualitative, so you didn't have to stress about designing any 5 Likert scale or 7 Likert scale, but you surely in your literature, in your proposal, did talk briefly about quantitative and qualitative data analysis. Sorry, quantitative approaches to research. Any input from your side?
I'm not quite sure if I follow.
Okay. What is your understanding of the Likert scale?
The
Likert scale.
I can't elaborate.
where you are given 5 questions, 5 choices to make, whether you strongly agree, you're not sure, disagree, strongly disagree kind of arrangement. Have you ever got into something like that before or not?
No.
So you are one of those who, when they receive questionnaire on the post, Mashigwan, you throw it you throw it first in the bin.
I
Or
think
you're lucky, or you're the
now
lucky
I
one who
get
never,
it, but
or
I
are you one
haven't.
of those lucky ones who never get to receive a questionnaire by post?
Not now, maybe in the older days.
Yeah, no, I'm sure now we know you're one of those who are very quick to throw it in the bin because we've got no time for that. Anybody who wants to take a chance on just talking about the Likert scale? We need to talk about the Likert scale because, as I said, for the questionnaire, that's very important. So when you are doing a quantitative study, let me see who I can pick. Usman, you are doing a quantitative, you said it's mixed method. Mixed method means you're doing both qualitative and quantitative. Take it over then, Edgar. You're doing both quanti and qualitative, right?
I'm only doing quantitative. And
so you will be you may find yourself having to navigate the Likert scale.
Yeah, but luckily in my instance, the subject is actually motor vehicles in this case, and it's more on secondary data. Hence, I wanted to actually check if part of your slides is going to come to a questionnaire whereby you've got secondary data that you need to use.
No, the secondary data, we can talk about it. What is your understanding of the secondary data? Remember, primary data is something else than secondary data. You are going to be using secondary data.
Yeah, so basically, primary data is basically what I have to design on the questionnaire to get the data from the actual subjects that I'll be investigating.
Yeah.
But in this case, my actual subject is motor vehicles or motor vehicle industry in South Africa. So I've got the data.
Oh, so you are using secondary data. So
yeah, I'm using secondary data.
You are using secondary data because primary data it's available.
Yeah. And
okay, so what kind of secondary data are you using?
So
or you intend to use?
For instance, I'm trying to investigate the introduction of inferential quantitative techniques into a support system framework for maintenance of vehicles. So
yes.
if you've got a distinct support system and you want to know how to allocate a tire life, for instance, on a vehicle, or the shocks or the brake pads, any component of the vehicle that needs to be repaired or maintained, how do you come about with that life of that unit? And then instead of designing a questionnaire that would look at different vehicles with different tire sizes, for instance, in different regions, the data is there in my company, for instance. I can ask IT to extract tire authorizations that they've made for the past 5 years for all 1,000 vehicles that we've got on the system.
Yeah. No, that's basically allowed. What you do need to do, though, is just to make sure that in your literature you explain and motivate the usage of a secondary data, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is already in your proposal then.
Yes, it is.
Yes, because if it's in your proposal, then you know where and how you're going to collect that secondary data, then the instrument of collecting that secondary data is what it is. And I take it that it's going to be, you've just made one example where you say you can go approach the IT unit within your company, which means you'll then need permissions and authorization to do so, isn't it?
Yeah, and they don't have a problem with granting that authorization. I'm currently in a stage where I'm doing my ethical clearance. So once it's approved and I have to engage those guys to give me the data, my challenge now will be that questionnaire that has to form part of my research in terms of how do I design that, whereas I've got points where I know where to get data. I know my subjects. I know where to get the data. How do I structure that questionnaire?
Are you going to be interviewing people?
No, I won't be interviewing people. Let's take for one typical example, if I want to know the tire life of a vehicle, for instance.
Yes.
So we've got different authorizations in the systems. One vehicle came to replace a tire at 40,000 kilometers, the other came at 60, the other came at 90. Different data that's sitting there, which would give me a descriptive stats that a tire life is replaced every 60,000 kilometers, for instance.
Yes.
So that's one of my questions.
Also, but that is now where, remember, that is where you are relying on secondary data again.
Yeah.
So if you want to then engage the I don't know whether you, in this case, it will be the owners or the producers, the manufacturers of that different tires. That's a different argument, because there you can get primary data.
Yeah, I want to limit it to the secondary data where I engage my IT, because we've got
that's
clients.
what I'm saying. No, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. In that event where you are limiting it to secondary data, then the data that gets generated in terms of this, 60,000 and so forth, gives you is the lifespan of this manufacturer, that and that's sufficient from a secondary data point of view, and you can collect it like that, analyze it like that, and generate a report from there.
Yeah. That's why my challenge is now, because that I can do, which I'm already doing now as part of my work, than just the research itself. But designing that questionnaire, that would work as an appendix in my report to go and get that data that I know how to get currently.
Oh, okay. Let me check something. Maybe Edgar, I'm not with you 100%. For you to collect the data that you want to collect from the IT, specifically linked to what you are studying?
Yeah.
You don't need a questionnaire. Do you agree? You need authorization.
Yeah, I need the authorization. Hence,
so now, at what point do you think the questionnaire will be relevant?
No, I don't think it will be relevant. Hence, I jumped in an hour ago when you said.
I don't think the questionnaire will be relevant. I think what will be relevant is if you can ask them to give you the information in a particular way, so that at least it gives you what you are looking for. Then maybe because it's secondary data, then there will be no need for a questionnaire. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. Hence, I was saying I jumped in an hour ago when you said Usman doesn't need a questionnaire for whatever question, and then I thought, okay, that's then answering my question. I've got the data and I don't need a questionnaire.
Okay.
Part of your slide was saying it's
but yours is not. Yours doesn't come across to me as quantitative though. Yours come to me as if it's qualitative.
It's quantitative, but using secondary data, because I'll be getting measurements out of the tire lives of vehicles, of all the components, for instance, that I'll be getting of a vehicle that needs to be repaired, what needs to be repaired and when. So, for instance, if I need to do an estimate of a tire life, when do you actually need to budget for a tire replacement on a vehicle? If you are a client of ours, I need to allocate maybe funds at every 60,000, because I took a sample of 500 vehicles. The majority of our clients came to replace tires at about 60,000 kilometers, or they came to replace brake pads at about 30,000 kilometers. So it's more quantitative. It's actually quantitative by nature. It relies on measurements of a lifespan of all the components that are repaired or replaced on the vehicle during the life of or economic life of a vehicle.
But you are not talking to any. You're not talking to any person. You are just relying on the data as presented to you via the lifespan of those different components, isn't it?
Yeah, and I said my subjects are not people in this case. They are vehicles. And out of those vehicles, I need to extract the quantitative information from there so I can make my inference out of it.
But what would be wrong in having a mixed method? Because we've got the principle of triangulation. You see, if you are going to 100% rely on secondary data and you are not making any effort at all because you may want to quantify, you quantify, but you may also want to qualify by just talking to one or two people in that same industry. Then in that case, you are doing triangulation and you are strengthening and reinforcing your research.
Yeah, I would love to do that, but because of time and the fact that secondary data is easy to get, it's already there.
Let's do this, Edgar. We've got a session coming soon. Let's talk about primary, secondary, and tertiary data, and then maybe we start with your case. Will that be fine?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we just want. I don't want you to change your mind, but I want you to use this discussion as a point of departure for other students to pick up the different type of primary, secondary, and tertiary data.
Okay, no, that's fine, Prof. Yeah, so that was one of my issues. Hence, I haven't started with the question.
Let's hold it there, because it sounds like you've just said one good principle, that secondary data is easy to get, but easy to get doesn't mean that it must just be the way to do it. So it will, I mean, for you it might be appropriate, but maybe for different circumstances it may not apply completely.
Yeah, so I was lucky because as easy as it is, the company or the industry, they've been trying to mold or do what I've been trying to do. Hence, this data is being gathered. I know one of the gatekeepers for secondary data will be that it's gathered, but not for the purpose of your research or your objective. But in this case, the objective has always been to do what I'm trying to do now. So companies gather the data for such reasons. So, but yeah, we will touch base on it.
I think let's put a hold on it. I'm keen to have a discussion on the different type of data. You know, there's primary, secondary, and tertiary, just to assist other students to be on board.
Okay, thanks, Prof.
Yeah, but thank you very much for the engagement. I think we had a very good engagement today.